as an overview, what did you think of it, Paul?
If you want me to be brutally honest, it wasn't one of your better ones.
We want you to be brutally but gently honest.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. That's perfect. I don't know if you can see us both, though. Can you see Pete?
Yes, I can. I'm just putting you on a pedestal.
Hey, about time too.
I mean, yeah.
Something I don't usually do.
It's good to see you, Durs. We haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, man.
Yes, I do have to say it's quite weird listening to these podcasts because it's sort of like I'm in a conversation, but you can't chip into it.
That must be incredibly frustrating for you. This is your chance then. This is exactly your chance.
Well, no, it's actually quite nice to shout at the thing once in a while. Wow, especially when you say lieutenant instead of lieutenant. And the less and fewer debate.
Oh, did I say less?
Yeah, you said less when you should have used fewer.
Oh,
man.
You're an animal.
Right, I'm going to open up my notes from the Vietnam one because I'm not going to remember.
I memorised it, so I don't know what you were doing.
You didn't have much fun. You didn't have really many funnies in the Vietnam thing.
It was a bit bleak, wasn't it? The whole war and rape.
I mean, there was a lot of euphemisms that was quite funny. Did you not like the honey flambéed banana?
Well, yeah. You had to wait quite a long time for the climax of your bananas.
My honey flambéed banana.
That's right.
So as an overview...
The hungry one I thought was really good.
Oh, okay. What was so good about that one?
I didn't know about it.
And you knew about Vietnam already?
Well, I knew bits about Vietnam, but it's oh God, I'm going to sound awful here, It's, sometimes when it's in our time and you get a subject that you know about, it's never as good as a subject that you don't know about.
So you're familiar with the courting. Have you been to a Vietnamese park after lights out? Is that what you're trying to tell us? You went in there, you got your honey flambéed banana, thoroughly nibbled.
Well, it wasn't just in Vietnam, was it? They sort of said during the Second World War they were shagging everywhere in the parks in London.
Oh, is that right?
I'll be honest, I've shagged in a London park, so I probably shouldn't judge.
But you could barely walk a yard without walking on an American GI. That's what I heard. You didn't put the one fact in that I thought you sort of said about, Ho Chi Minh could have made a very nice croissant.
What? I don't understand.
Well, Ho Chi Minh was a pastry chef.
Okay, wait, step back. I did not find that in my research. What do you mean he was a pastry chef? He was the revolutionary leader.
Yes, but before that, he worked in France. In fact, he worked on the New Haven Dieppe ferry.
Well, you've got the right Ho Chi Minh here.
That's his cousin, Bob Ho Chi Minh.
It seems there's a memorial to him in New Haven.
Ho Chi Minh was a pastry chef. This is
feels like a song title.
Yes, he worked in hotels in France and on the cross-channel trade. This was just before the First World War, I think.
Wow, so Ryan, you missed that. There's a key fact you missed. Ho Chi Minh was a pastry chef.
That was the sort of aside I quite like.
That's an amazing fact.
So, broadly speaking, what did you think? I feel like a schoolboy handing in his homework. What did you think, sir?
I think I learned actually quite a few things that I didn't know. I think you were on a bit of a sticky wicket when you had sex.
Just full stop.
That sentence could end there, but I'm sure there's more.
Because it's quite a restrictive subject in one sense compared to war.
Is this a cry for help, Paul?
Yeah.
So
It is restrictive. You're right, but I was surprised by how much research there actually was that was within the time period that we're talking about. Like a lot of the time, some of the podcasts that we do, we have to sort of leverage from periods before and
stretch
afterwards.
a bit, don't we? Sometimes,
just a little bit, because it is quite hard to find research, particularly when for yours, Pete, where it's 300 AD or whatever. It's hard to sort of find stuff. But as a general guideline, things are happening at these specific periods of time. But what I found was there was a lot of research. There were a lot of people out there asking people how they're having sex, when they're having sex, the types of sex they're having. Like as a research question, I guess there's a lot of funding that goes into it, or a lot of people that are just generally interested in sex.
I do want to know how difficult it was to sift the information from the less welcome sites.
People are very nosy, and it's a way for scientists to leverage their nosiness into some sort of scientific usefulness.
Kinky scientists.
But sort of the interesting thing about sex, and you were talking about there, was the enormous population explosion. So they were certainly having lots of sex.
They were. And an enormous population growth at a time where the government was trying to shut it down. They didn't want a population growth. And people were like, nope.
Yeah, sort of to go political. I don't understand why these supposedly intelligent communist leaders don't look at every other supposedly intelligent communist leader and think, it's never worked. Why are we doing this?
Weren't they all kind of around the same time, though?
No, the Vietnamese were much later than the sort of Soviet Revolution and the Chinese Revolution, for that matter.
Well, yeah, they were sort of part of the French Empire up until about 1955.
Because what I thought was interesting was that they had their 5-year plan, and it really mirrored what Lenin went through. He's like, we'll have a 5-year plan, it's not working, loosen the reins a bit, bring a bit of relatively small amount of capitalism in. And it's like they hadn't read any of that, and they've gone, let's do all that exactly again.
It's this pure, it's a pure dogma, isn't it? You sort of you're not pragmatic at all about it, and they just revisit the old failures, and it's the poor bloody infantry or poor bloody population that are the ones that suffer.
So what's inspiring them to continue it then? Just the belief in it. Just
right?
the belief that it could actually work if everyone just...
How do we get fascists popping up again? Even that's more discredited.
It's sort of an unreligious faith, isn't it? You can't argue against faith if you think it's right. Conspiracy theorists, you can't argue against them.
So on the podcast, Paul, I'm interested to know which bit stood out for you as, or for better or worse, I suppose. Which bits you thought too much, too little, new and interesting?
I like the country profiles bit that you always do at the start, and the sort of potted, and also the potted history bit. Although it was too long for this one, the potted history bit, I can sort of understand why.
Yeah,
we need to pot it more.
Well, it's a tricky one because I wanted to sort of give the rationale for why people were having sex, why they were pushing back against it, the reasons for why people were out in the park, without just saying that's what they were doing. I wanted to sort of just colour that scene.
Oh yes. You need some sort of background, but possibly you could have put the background a bit more into the sex thing, rather than having a sort of a... I must admit, I did look at my watch when you started to talk about sex, and you were something like, you were 28 minutes in.
Yeah, it was a long time in, you're right. There was a lot of potted history. There's a lot that happens in Vietnam. What do you want? I didn't control the history.
I just like the idea of Dersley looking at his watch going, is it sex yet?
Well, Dersley looking at his watch is a little one of those fob watches, right?
That's true.
Chain around
through the
his
waistcoat. That's all he's got on at that point. Is it time for sex?
Talking of that, what did you think about the drinking the secretions of a young coupled couple? Was that shocking?
Was that true? Do you have a thing about putting in an untrue fact every week?
No, this is your job, Dersley. You've got to find out whether it's true. You're our fact checker now.
As I understand it, that is entirely true.
I'm not prepared to compromise my internet history.
But yeah, no, that's a true thing. Taoism. Who would have thought? Who would have thought those Taoists slurping up all sorts of?
Well, yeah, it is sort of a. Well, it's a philosophy, isn't it? It's a bit like the Stoics of ancient Greece. You know, they used to go around masturbating in public.
Wait, what? Why? Why were they masturbating in public?
Yes.
Why? What were they doing that for?
Well,
I mean, I can imagine why they were doing it.
It's one of the things that Stoics did.
So
that feels like insufficient reasoning to me. Excuse me, sir. Could you explain why you're masturbating? Well, I'm a Stoic, innit?
That's what I do. That's amazing. How did that help?
I honestly don't know. You know, it's one of those facts that you have, and you sort of check to see whether it's true. But
you're going to have to wait till we've got a Roman episode.
I'm going to get my filthy laptop out and start looking that one up.
Stoic masturbation sounds like something that would be the least enjoyable form, though, doesn't it? It's like, I have to get through this. But it's the same thing as this Taoism. It's this sort of weird, as you say, it's not a religion. It's a sort of philosophy for life. But isn't that what religion is?
Yeah, I guess so.
Good question.
I mean, it's one of these things where, like, maybe somebody lived for a long time and they asked them, like, how have you lived as long as you do? And they're like, well, the one thing that I did.
The thing that stands out for me
is I would masturbate in public, stoically. And so they went, well, maybe we'll give that a go. I was thinking of the guy who played Pee Wee Herman. Didn't he get caught masturbating?
He did get caught masturbating in a theatre. Movie theatre.
Yeah, movie theatre.
Movie theatre.
I think it was a dirty movie theatre as well.
Which, to my mind, is like, well, what did you think was going to happen?
Stoically masturbating in the back of a movie theatre.
I will endure.
Where were you, Paul, in 1985 to 1990?
Oh, that was the period I was at university.
Okay. Did you
protest the war?
86 to 89.
Probably not in the 80s. The war was longer.
Yeah.
It was all the lefties were up in arms about, was it El Salvador? Who was that chap in El Salvador at the time? And there was all of this boycott South Africa stuff as well. I remember that from that time period.
Yes, because of the bit where they were extraordinarily racist and had a terrible apartheid regime.
Also, the bit that I found very interesting was the attitude to the American non-people.
Oh, the American
non-people.
Yeah. Yeah, that bit actually caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting to be moved quite so much by the story of the Amerasians. And just how unfair it seemed. It just seemed so unjust. Like they had really no part to play in any of it.
It's the classic "the sins of the father."
Yeah, I guess so.
Which seems odd. Whereas we were saying you always hear about their sort of really optimistic and happy-go-lucky, but obviously there's a line that is not to be crossed, and that was one such line.
It was, and I think it's easy to also, criticize or hold the Vietnamese accountable for their treatment of the Amerasians, but from what they'd been through, you can perhaps understand their attitudes in some way. I mean, I struggle to because they're children.
It's the classic paradox, though, isn't it? To understand why someone may be behaving a certain way does not endorse that behaviour.
It doesn't. No, that's true.
To say I was abused doesn't mean it's okay for you to abuse, right? That's
not
just
at all.
The essence of it.
But there is something to be said for having some understanding of that, and rather than just holding somebody to some sort of two-dimensional view of, well, that was just evil.
Yeah, so it's how do we break the cycle, not how do we just hate people.
Do you know whether that was from the top, sort of the government was sort of saying these people are non-citizens, you should shun them at all costs, or was it just a ground-up type movement?
That's a really good question. And do you know what? That didn't come through in the research. What came through was that it was more the parents and their peers. So other kids at schools.
The music face.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it was just more culturally, it just wasn't accepted. They just were not accepted people.
I suppose ultimately, much like if you were to have a partner who had an adulterous affair and had a child that was clearly not your own, this child, perfectly innocent person, is also a living reminder of something that was very traumatic for you. And that must be a very difficult thing to extricate your feelings for this person who's a separate individual with the fact that they are a sort of vivid emblem of something that was very unpleasant for you.
Paul, have you ever been to Vietnam?
No. Closest I've been is probably Malaysia and Japan.
Why is that funny?
What?
And I also went to Burma.
Oh, right, yeah.
Malaya is the actual term for Peninsular Malaysia, isn't it?
I mean, you're asking us. We don't.
You're
know.
the fact checker, mate. We don't know things. We just make jokes.
So you haven't been to Vietnam. Any reason why you haven't? Like, would you choose to go?
Of the countries in Indochina, it's the one that I would want to go to the most. I've sort of don't really have any inklings of wanting to go to Thailand.
Okay. Would you go, if you had to go? Would you go to the north or south of Vietnam?
I've heard the bit up north near China is supposed to be incredibly beautiful, but also the Mekong Delta will be quite interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think most of the country would be amazing. I was surprised by the fact that 80% of it was rural, right, and that only 20% of it was urban.
So that must be. I know you said that there'd be mass movement of people, but the population density must be absolutely enormous around the cities then.
I mean, it must be, right? I think that's why they were trying to...
The country is, twice the size of, or 3 times the size of England.
Sorry, how many Frances is that?
With a population, I have no idea.
You're going to have to learn your Frances, mate, if you're going to be on this podcast.
But England is about 50,000 square miles, so that's quite an easy... I think it's 50,338 square miles.
Right. I mean, I find it fascinating. I suspect there is a real difference between the north and the south.
Wasn't historically wasn't there an historical empire on the southern bit of Indochina that covered Cambodia, southern Vietnam, which was called Anan, I think, or Aman?
I mean, that's entirely possible. Again, you're asking the wrong people.
So, and I think sort of the north was, before the French took it over, was a sort of separate kingdom or fiefdom.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be some historical reason why.
It's an old story, isn't it? A couple of places that were separate places were crammed together after a colonial expedition, then fall out later.
Mm. How do you fancy going to a beer hug?
What's a beer hug?
Beer hug bar. Those were the bars where you can pick up a prostitute.
Oh, yes. It sounds like I haven't listened to it. I have.
No, beer hug bars.
I couldn't possibly.
Beer hug bars is where many of the clients are picked up by prostitutes. So, but it's just a regular bar as well, right? You can just go there and have a drink. You don't have to pick somebody up. Just homebrew, weak, lagery drink, super cheap.
Ooh,
little barbecue snacks.
I think so talking about going to Vietnam, are there any decent hotels there?
I mean, yes, there are plenty of nice hotels. Many of the named brands hotels, you're just not going to be able to take somebody who's a Vietnam citizen there with you.
Especially if they're younger and attractive.
Yeah, well, that's a bit like Cuba.
Yeah, Pete was saying that. So Pete's been to Cuba, and he was saying that a lot of what we were talking about in the podcast was very reminiscent of life in Cuba.
Well, failed communist country, yeah.
Yeah, just what the people went through.
But I sort of think that you get the people in Vietnam. I think this is sort of quite well known. They are sort of quite optimistic and upbeat,
Which is amazing when you think about it.
There's a lot of people that are upbeat in those parks late at night in Vietnam.
Population to population, I think sort of they don't bear particular individual resentment if an American were to appear, unless they were being particularly obnoxious.
Are we talking about now, or are we talking about back then?
No, I think we're talking about now, because all of the stuff that I've ever heard about Vietnam is they're sort of incredibly welcoming, whether that's because of money.
I've known a few Vietnamese and they've all been lovely, but that might just be luck.
We're talking about an entire nation of people. There are dickheads
They
there.
are all lovely. It's the law.
One thing that did ring a bell, Pete, because we are, I guess, of similar ages,
I'm younger.
was when you were talking about the boat people. Because I was racking my brain. We had one at my school. God, that sounds awful, doesn't it? But
Yeah, you mean someone at your school was a boat person?
yes.
Well, just like a special guest they wheeled out one morning. And this is what boat people look like. Anyway, thank you very much.
No, obviously they've been given asylum in this country.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a primary school, so that was a long while ago.
Are you still in touch?
I can't even remember his name.
I thought you were going to say, he makes my suits.
He makes nice pastries.
I think it was actually Fook something.
So many jokes, I actually just paralysed. I got clogged up with jokes.
Right, okay, so Paul, let's do a grading. So classic school grading,
Yeah.
A to F.
Oh, I thought you'd want university grading.
No, because university grading is idiotic.
Well,
It's either brilliant or okay or terrible.
Let's go classic. Let's go A plus.
I'd give you a beta alpha minus.
Yeah, again.
A beta alpha minus.
Right, can we have that in modern currency?
How many shillings and pence is that?
Well, that was half the thing, of course, at university. Nobody ever knew actually what the scales were, and they could. I remember once getting a beta double plus question mark plus.
Oh, yeah, I've done well there.
I don't know what he's talking about anymore.
Okay, so on a scale of like normal human matters, A to F, let's say. A being I learned a lot and I was fascinated throughout and I never once looked at my watch.
Oh, nice try.
Down to
Thank you very much.
F, I turned it off after 5 minutes because I was appallingly offended and bored off my gourd.
Yeah. And bearing in mind, I love you, Paul.
Bearing in mind that it wasn't. No, this is a grade for the both of us because it's as much about the host as it is the presenter.
You're going to say that until he tells us it's an F, and then it's all.
Yeah, then it's yours. Yep, then it's yours.
It's certainly not an F.
Result.
I would rate it in terms of the Hungary one. The Hungary, I'd give you an A minus.
Nice.
Ooh.
I think the Hungary one was really good, and that should be the model.
Right.
This one, I'd give you a C plus.
C plus.
I'll take a C plus.
He's stern, but that's good.
That sounds like most of my grades throughout school, so I'll take it because it's just I'm very familiar with average straight down the middle. So I'll take that. Thank you, Paul. I will aim to do better. If you could give me some advice.
Well, sorry, that sounds quite harsh because I do.
Go with it. Go with it. This is good. This is funny.
It's totally fine. Don't explain yourself.
Well,
I love it.
Of course, I'm going to explain myself. If I make a comment, I'll explain it. It's sort of like a ranking between. I think it was one of the weakest ones you've done.
Ah, okay. No, that's good because then
you're
really going to love Portugal, mate. I'm just saying. I don't want to.
Well, because it's yours.
I don't want to queer the pitch here, but I think, Paul, you're going to be fascinated by next week's Portugal instalment.
Well, we'll find out, won't we? Wait till you get a D.
It's going to be. I'm predicting an A- right now. I'm just going to put it out.
Rub it in your face when you get a D. All right, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us for our after show podcast. We need to come up with a name for this.
History
happens.
Continues to happen. Dersley happens everywhere.
No, try not to use my name very much.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
What have you got any suggestions?
Suggestions for what?
For the name for this?
Okay, how about Paul Dersley's The Paul Dersley Show? With Paul Dersley.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us on The Verdict.
Oh, The Verdict.
Rainbow Road.
What?
Oh, I'm going back to Stoic Masturbators.
I think the verdict is quite good.
I think it's pretty good. History happens everywhere. The Verdict. It's pretty good.
How true was it, and what did I like?
I think.
Here's your grade.
Yeah, I don't think this chat has gone particularly well.
You'll be surprised because I can edit like a son of a bitch. All right. So history happened everywhere. The Verdict. This is the end of the first one.
And what's my cut of the profits?
Well, current profits you could have 100% off, and it will make no difference.
You can have a T-shirt. How about that?
I don't wear T-shirts.
I'll get you a embroidered
a smoking jacket, an embroidered smoking jacket.
Embroidered smoking jacket.
I've got one of those.
Of course you do.
But not with History Happened Everywhere embroidered on it, so you can puff on your meerschaum whilst casting judgment upon our latest efforts.
Anyway, thank you for having me.
No, it's our absolute pleasure. It's a delight.
Always.
Okie dokie.
Hi, buddy.
Cheers. Bye.
Pete, anything else to add?
No, I'd just like to say thank you for being on History
Happened
Everywhere. The Verdict. So how did we do? Did you spot any mistakes? Was there something fascinating we missed? Let us know by emailing us at hhepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can get us on Twitter at hhepodcast.
It's confusing, isn't it?
It's
not two ats.
It really is. There's just one
at.
at, everyone.
I think everyone knows.
Yeah.
What didn't we talk about that you were hoping that perhaps would come up, if anything?
I was expecting ping pong balls.